welcome to Think Tech Talks here on the 3 to 4 block on a given Friday. We're doing community matters, and the double entendre there is that community does matter. Community matters a lot. We're talking today to the Attorney General of the state of Hawaii, David Louie. He's right here in our studio, and we're honored by his presence. Thank you for coming down, David.
Good afternoon, Jay. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. So we're going to talk about the Attorney General and tech, and I guess we're going to talk about, protecting us, because the Attorney General does protect us. And in the way of my recollection years ago, I know you have a division in the Attorney General's office with lawyers dedicated to, controlling scams. And I know you sometimes prosecute those cases. And I know you also are concerned with pornography and other things in which, people abuse the internet. So it's a matter of protecting people from scams and in a way, from themselves.
Yeah, we do all of that and more, Jay. So, I've been privileged to be the Attorney General for the state of Hawaii, appointed by Governor Abercrombie. And Governor Abercrombie has been a very active supporter and encourager of the activities of the Department of the Attorney General to protect Hawaii's citizens. And so we do that. And in the high-tech or I-tech, information technology realm, we do that in two ways. We come at it from the law enforcement angle, and then we also come at it from the consumer protection angle. Yeah. And so, we're active in both, and happy to talk about both of those things.
Okay, I want to break it down. I'll tell you in advance my plan here. Okay, first I want to talk about the Office of the Attorney General in general. And you started there, but I think people would like to know how it works, what's going on. Second is I'd like to talk about the scams and how you protect the public from those things. Thirdly, talk about pornography and other coverage, other functions involving the internet that happen in your office. And finally, I'd like to talk about the future of the Attorney General's office and in the internet.
I think we're still going to be here.
I think you'd be here forever. I guess the whole thing about Sunny Bagwalia and, the state systems and how it looks from your vantage, how important is it, what can you use to make your life and your functions easier?
Sounds good. I'm here to answer questions, whatever they may be.
Okay, tell us about the Office of the Attorney General. It's the biggest law firm in the state. Everyone always says that. What's it like?
Well, it's a terrific office. We have 185 attorneys on any given day, 750 employees on any given day.
Oh, it's huge.
And we handle just a whole wide range of things. I'm the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for the state of Hawaii. I am constitutionally mandated in this position to provide advice, counsel, and representation to all state employees, from the governor to cabinet heads to legislators to employees to just guys who work for the state.
Sounds overwhelming to me.
And so we have a whole bunch of attorneys doing that and support staff doing that. And so our office provides that advice and counsel and representation, both helping draft legislation and fielding questions, reviewing and preparing contracts, reviewing and preparing deals, going into court to defend the state. As you know, we had a recent challenge on the same-sex marriage law that was passed by the state, and yesterday we were down in court, and the court ruled in our favor. We won that.
Nice one. Congratulations.
I'm very pleased with that, and it was the right decision.
Yes.
And so we do that, and then we also do child support enforcement, which is for parents who are mandated to provide child support enforcement with a court order. They do so with the help of our office, and so our office handles both willing parents and not so willing parents who have to provide child support enforcement, because sometimes there are emotional issues or other issues involved with a breakup and the children suffer, and that's wrong. So we need to make sure that those child support enforcement payments go through so that the children can get support, education, food, clothing, etc.
So is it that you monitor the payments? or does the family court do that and then you enforce what the family court decides?
We actually run the payments through our office and monitor them and ensure compliance. And so we work hand in glove with the family court on that as the enforcement arm. Of the
And
family
that
court.
works faster, I think, if you have one agency looking at the payments and enforcing the payment schedule at the same
Right,
time.
absolutely, and so we do that, and our family law division goes into court, and sometimes we'll help with child custody or support orders or things like that to clarify. So that's a very important thing. It's very important to help people who don't have the wherewithal to go hire private attorneys.
Don't have lawyers, yeah.
To do that, and these are very important operations. So we're pleased to do that.
Yeah.
So we do all that representation, and primarily most of what the Attorney General does is civil matters. That is, we advise people about laws. We advise the state about various matters. We do have criminal matters, but we tend to, although the state authority for that is through my office and my position, much of that is delegated out to the counties, to the county prosecutors from each island, and to the people who do those prosecutions, and so most of the prosecutions for your normal crimes, theft, burglary, assaults, things like that, the various prosecutors will do that. My office has a criminal division that handles state crimes. Crimes that occur on state property, Medicaid fraud, crimes that involve state resources, embezzlement of state funds, embezzlement of DOE funds, things like that. And so, and we have the authority to prosecute almost anything if we wanted to, but in many cases, the prosecutors are better set up to do that. And so we work closely with them. We have a law enforcement coalition where we get together very often with the police chiefs and the prosecutors to talk over issues that are coming up and perhaps legislative initiatives, things like that.
So you said it's delegated. So is it that the original jurisdiction, not to use the big word, but the original power to prosecute crimes lies with you, and you delegate it to the counties, and they establish prosecuting attorneys' offices, and they do the prosecution of certain crimes?
Yes, and that's because everything really, all of authority in the United States flows from the states.
Yes.
So the states are the sovereign entities that have the power and the authority to do things, and counties are a political subdivision of the states. And so the original authority is through the state, and then it's delegated with the acceptance of the counties to take on those jobs.
So you could change the delegation.
Certainly
if it worked. And you could change the line between the state-type prosecutions and the county-type prosecutions.
Could, but it works pretty well,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
it
there'd be
does.
no reason to change it at this point in time.
Yeah.
The other thing we do is we also cooperate, at least on law enforcement matters, with the federal government. The U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, we cooperate with them. And then, we handle extraditions of criminals from other states, and so we cooperate with them.
This all sounds like 5-0, I'm sorry to say, David.
Yes, absolutely.
Is 5-0 accurate?
Well, we have really tough guys in the department, and we do all these things, but we're not out there killing people and shooting people up and doing that every day. No.
Okay, so, how about life as Attorney General? Now, you were, going back a few years, you were practicing law in a firm. Actually, it was in my building, in the Davies building, for a long, long time. And you were president of the Bar Association for a while in that period. And now, the call comes, and you take the call, and you become a public official. What an extraordinary change. And I wonder if you'd be willing to talk about how it's different.
Certainly, and it's been really a privilege and a very interesting job. There is no more interesting job as an attorney than this job, just because of the breadth and the scope. I can go from a constitutional issue, and quite frankly, most lawyers deal with no constitutional issues. They spend a lot of time in law school studying constitutional issues, but it's only state government lawyers who actually deal with constitutional issues. And we just won one. We won this reapportionment question as to whether or not Hawaii's reapportionment plan was constitutional, and we went up to the U.S. Supreme Court and got a summary dismissal of the challenge to that. The same-sex marriage issue was a constitutional issue under the Equal Protection Clause, and the powers and how a constitution works. So it's fascinating. I spent my career doing civil litigation, representing insurance companies, businesses, individuals who got sued, and dealing with all kinds of things like auto accidents or legal malpractice, construction matters, all kinds of things.
Didn't involve a lot of constitutional law.
Zero constitutional law. So this was a big change for me to do this, and I've had a lot of help. The attorneys in the department have been terrific, and they're really the experts. So the interesting change for me was severalfold. The first one was I went from being a trial attorney where you represent somebody's interests and you learn an awful lot about a small matter. So you become an expert in this one thing that is at risk. And that's not what I do now. What I do now is I have such a broad range of things. I know now a little bit about an awful lot of things. Before I knew an awful lot about a small number of things, and now I know a lot about just broad things, but I rely upon the really smart people in my department to have the details and to be into the weeds and to figure out a lot of that stuff. But my training was good for this. So that's been a change. The other change is you go from being an attorney who represents the interests of a client, okay?
Yeah.
And that client's interests are paramount, and that's what you think about, and that's how you view the world, is what is best for my client. Okay, so now I have 1.3 million clients. I have the state of Hawaii. And everybody in it. And so instead of thinking about what is best for a particular business or a particular individual, I now think about what's best for the people of the state of Hawaii. So it's really an attitudinal change and a perspective change.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting. And then the final thing, which is really kind of interesting here, is that people call me General. And it's kind of a funny aside. When I first became Attorney General, I went to these national meetings, and people say, "Oh, hello, General. Good morning, General. How are you, General?" And you go, "Oh, that's interesting," because I was never in the military. And the funny thing is it's Attorney General. Okay. Now, what's strange about that is that the word Attorney General actually means an attorney who has a general perspective. It comes from England, and where you were the attorney, the chief advisor to the king, and so you had a broad scope and you knew a lot about general matters. You were not an attorney specific; you were an attorney general. Okay, so now, however, and who am I to say, because the United States Supreme Court addresses all of us attorneys general as general, and they address the Solicitor General as general. So I am not the person to call them wrong. Okay, but it is a matter, I think it would make my high school English teacher's head explode, because we've taken an adjective, Attorney General, and made the adjective a title and a noun. So now I'm a general. But who am I to say that that's wrong?
But you talk about going to conferences and getting out. And I think a lot of people see the Attorney General as, you're in your office, you're supervising this huge law firm. The law firm is extended to every corner of state government and a lot of city, county government. But actually there's more than that. And it's more too than looking at it from the point of view of 1.3 million people as your clients. You got to get out. You go to other states. You deal with other attorneys general. And you're involved in sort of a mantle of state government everywhere in the country, isn't it?
That is true. I'm a member of the National Association of Attorneys General. And then I'm also a member of the Conference of Western Attorneys General, because the Western states have unique interests. But in that sort of milieu, or that environment of working with other attorneys general, we have been able to do quite a number of things and take on things that individual states might not take on. So for example, two big things. One was the tobacco settlement about 15 years ago,
Big thing.
where the attorneys general banded together and took on the tobacco industry and got a landmark settlement that resulted in all kinds of policies and procedures, warnings, comprehensive regulation of cigarettes, and a flow of money to the states to help them with their health problems and things like that.
Which would not have happened except for the grouping together of the attorneys general.
That's true. And a similar thing was in the mortgage foreclosure settlement, which occurred in 2009 and 2010. We put the final touches on it in 2011 when I came into office, and again, 49 states, one state decided to go a slightly different path, but 49 states and the federal government reached a settlement with the 5 biggest banks, which controlled, I'd say 40% of the market, a lot of the mortgage market.
Yeah.
And got a settlement that did 2 things. One, it gave $25 billion in potential relief to homeowners who were underwater, who could have such money make a difference in whether or not they could stay afloat or not stay afloat while the market corrected itself. That was one thing. But the more important thing was we got the crown jewel, in my opinion, because we got mortgage servicing standards, single point of contact, no runarounds.
So important.
You got to have the information right there. You have to offer it to people. No dual tracking, where they had some banks who one caller would call the guy up and say, "Yeah, I got your thing here, and you're all set." And then on the other side of the bank, somebody would be foreclosing on them.
And they knew it.
They knew that.
It was a device.
It was quite awful, the way some of these banks were profiting from this situation. Yeah. And so getting those servicing standards was key. And those things are essentially best practices. They're the kind of thing that consumers want. They want to be treated fairly. They want it to be treated with dignity. And that's what we got out of that. So I was very, very pleased to do that. We're working on a host of initiatives. I serve as the co-chair of the Consumer Protection Committee for the National Association, and I'm also on the Internet, the Intellectual Property Committee. And in that capacity, we just recently met with some of the top folks from Google to talk about what more Google can do to help clean up the internet and police it and make it safer for people.
Ooh, so I want to talk more about that right after this break.
Sure.
That's David Louie. He's the Attorney General of the state of Hawaii. We are honored to have him on our show. This is Think Tech Talks, Community Matters, and yes, it does. And we're talking about tech and the Attorney General today. We'll be right back after this short break.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome back. I'm Jay Fidell. This is Think Tech Talks in the Community Matters series, because we believe that community does matter. With David Louie, Attorney General of the state of Hawaii. We're happy to have him here. And we're talking about tech and the Attorney General. I want to pick up on what you were talking about a moment ago about how the attorneys general in the country have an organization. The organization deals with Google to make sure that things are right on the internet. This is a great thing. This kind of approach didn't exist 20 years ago. Am I right?
Absolutely. Well, the internet didn't exist 20 years ago.
Thank you.
What we did, and one of the things is, attorneys general get together and we look to see, okay, do we have common interests? Do we have common problems? Can we solve them or at least address them in a national way with a group of us? And things like the internet are obviously beyond the reach of any single state.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these bad actors are in Russia or Nigeria or something like that, and how are you going to deal with it? So the great thing about the internet is it brings the world to your doorstep. Now you can shop online, you can get all kinds of information, you have a giant library online. And the bad thing about the internet is it brings the world to your doorstep. You have robbers, thieves, scammers, pimps, and all kinds of very bad people.
And it's always changing. They're always coming up with new things, finding new victims. So somebody has to be very quick to catch them.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we have been looking at is what is the role of the internet gateway organizations in this fight, in this effort to protect our citizens? And Google is there. So one of the things we wanted to meet with Google, and we have done this, and we've been sending letters to them and talking to them, but and there's a whole lot of things, because let's just talk about some of the problems that are on the internet. You've got child pornography. A very pernicious, bad thing. There is not a single person, I think, anywhere in decent society that wants to stand up and say, oh, I'm a child pornographer, and I'm really happy to do that. Nobody says that. Everybody condemns it. It is wrong. And these children are the victims. And so we want to do everything in our power to stamp that out. And the internet is this huge vehicle for that to occur. As you know, somebody just got recently arrested in Hawaii for possessing child pornography on his computer and having pictures. And so that's the kind of thing that we want to prevent. So, but you also have illegal drugs. You have sites where illegal drugs are being sold. You have piracy of movies, intellectual property, music. You have people who can get prostitution services or get counterfeit and fake IDs. You can learn how to make a bomb. You can do all these things on the internet because it's there. And so we have been talking. We met with Google and we talked to Google and we said, look, come on. You guys are very powerful. You're huge. You're gigantic. 80% of all the searches are coming through you.
And they have tools.
They have tools, and the question is their willingness to use tools. They have, in fact, in the child pornography area, been extremely good. They have shut down sites. When you go on and you type in child pornography, you can't find it. And so one of the big vehicles that Google has is Google has search. Okay, and so search is out there, and it finds stuff on the web, and if you don't know where to look or you don't have the particular address, it directs you there. And so we have asked Google to be more proactive about taking down sites, delisting sites, demoting sites, removing sites that are clear piracy sites, illegal sites, prostitution sites, and things like that. And we're having dialogue about this. Google wants to be very careful, in fairness to them, about being the internet censor or responding to law enforcement, because they say, well, if we do it for you, then we have to do it for China, or we have to do it for Germany, or somebody else, and it may not be as benign as the United States or the attorneys general of the various states. And we say, you know what, that's all very fine and well, but we've got some crimes going on here, and we want your help. And not only do we want this help with search, but we want this help with autocomplete. We want you to stop your automatic function that when you type in murder, up pops something like murder your wife. how to murder your wife and get away with it, murder your mother-in-law, things like that automatically populate because some people might be typing that in, or
Right. Some people might be typing that in.
That's right. And so
Imagine.
we don't think that it's appropriate for Google to be suggesting those
Because
terms
that's what it is.
on an autocomplete. So we've talked to them about that, and we're just working to try and stop piracy too, where they free movies online, or they'll direct you right away. And then the other thing about Google, which we've been talking to them about, is you know what? You guys should not try and profit from advertising on sites like this. And they have expressed publicly in their policies and in their media releases and in their blogs that they are against piracy, that they are against illegal drugs and things like that. But we continue to see it on the internet. We continue to see pirate sites on the internet getting high ratings and right at the top. And so we are trying to encourage them and to work with them and talk to them about, you know what, you got to do more. You got to throw more people at it. You got bright people. I'm an attorney general. I don't know how that stuff works, but you guys are really smart. You could do more, and you can take down these people.
I'll tell you a short story that somehow relates to this. I had a site once, this is not quite 10 years ago, which was hacked by some hackers in Vladivostok. That's the way, and I know that because my provider told me that, so I assume that's true. It was hacked with something called a SQL injection attack, which goes into the data. It's very hard to fix it and to plug the holes, so to speak. Well, when this got bad, all of a sudden, a red page showed up on that site. Anybody goes to that site, a red page shows up and says, this site is infected with SQL injection attack. And what was interesting about it is Google made the page. Google has the power to stop any site, even though it's not a Google site. It's somebody else. They're not the provider necessarily, but they're so ubiquitous on the net, they can actually affect everything that goes on. It's a little scary. They're so big and powerful, but you went to the right people. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and we're having a continuing dialogue with them on this, and we had this meeting. 8 attorneys general showed up to the meeting that we had in Denver. 23 states were represented at this meeting, and several were on the phone. And more of my colleagues are looking at this saying, you know what, we got to do the right thing here.
Well, it's great because it's an area of enforcement that might not otherwise be handled. You can watch all the cops and robbers you want, but the fact is the attorneys general are the ones that are handling this area. That's the reality.
Right, absolutely.
So can we get to some of the specifics? Let's take scams. Because I find, and to my disbelief, I find that there are new scams every day, and some of them even trick me for a while. And then I realize, whoa, there's something wrong with this. It doesn't ring true. They're looking for information about me, blah, blah, blah. What do you see happening here in Hawaii? How are people getting scammed these days?
I filed a lawsuit against a number of credit card companies that were perpetrating a scam on a number of Hawaii residents, where charges would just show up, small charges, and that's what's happening. One of the big scams is you click on something, you click on the authorization. They say free, get something free. And then you go through there, and then they have a whole page of gobbledygook, which is their policies and procedures. And who read that the last time? Nobody reads that. They think, oh, it's benign, like Google's policies or Apple's policies. Click. What they don't know is that has now allowed them to put charges on your credit card. And then you give them your credit card. And then so I filed a suit against some credit card companies that had started putting in these payment protection charges that would range somewhere from $15 to hundreds of dollars, and people just didn't notice it on their credit cards.
Gotta look at your credit card bill.
$15 charge or $30 charge. But when you do that for, millions of people, you can make an awful lot of money. And there's a bunch of, credit cards were doing it, so we sued them, and we've gotten and the federal government sued them, and we've gotten improvement in that area. But there are scammers out there who will do that. There was a recent article in the Atlantic Monthly about that where people just absolutely go on and set up these what they call honey traps for unsuspecting people. So you have to be very, very careful about these things. And then the other thing that you've got is you've got data security breaches. You got Target, you've got Neiman Marcus. I just saw a notice that Neiman Marcus just put out that approximately 9,000 Hawaii residents had their credit cards and their information compromised at the Neiman Market thing. I don't know how many Target shoppers have had their credit card information compromised, and some of that stuff is being sold worldwide right now. They caught some people trying to come into the United States with that data. My recommendation to people who shopped at Neiman Marcus and Target and gave them your credit card: go change your credit card and do it now, and go change your password, because from the media reports at least, not only did they get your credit card numbers, they got your vital data, they got your address, and they may have gotten some confidential information where you answer those questions and things like that. So you need to do that. And in order to protect yourself on the internet, these thieves are very smart. These people, they spend all their time thinking of ways to separate good, honest people from their money.
Yeah.
And so you need to change your passwords frequently. If you hear about a breach in a store where you use your credit card, just get another credit card. It's very easy. Call your bank up and say, I want a new credit card.
Before we go to the break, what's the worst case analysis? So you're on the list of records that have been stolen from Target or Neiman Marcus. What could happen? What's the worst that could happen?
Well, the credit cards say that your liability, your personal liability for these false, fraudulent charges is limited to $50. And so most people think that that's not that big of a deal, but if you allow it to go on, you could in fact end up being liable for some of these charges if you don't catch it and you don't report the theft of your credit card or this data to the credit card companies. So you want to be careful about that. And then many times, it's not so much the liability, it's the fact that if you don't check your credit card bill and people charge these things fraudulently and then you okay it, you're out the money.
You'll never get the money back. Never.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's take a short break. And when we come back, David, I'd like to ask you, what happens if the guys who do this bad stuff actually live in Vladivostok? And what we can do about that. That's David Louie. He's the Attorney General of the state of Hawaii. We are so happy to have him with us. This is Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidell. We're talking about community matters because it does. And we're talking about tech today and the Attorney General. We'll be right back after this short break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with David Louie, the Attorney General of the state of Hawaii. On Think Tech Talks, we're talking about community matters. That is, it does matter. Tech and the Attorney General. So the question left hanging before the break, David, was what about these bad guys? Suppose they're beyond, easy capture. They're beyond easy prosecution, and they suppose they live in Vladivostok, arguably, or worse. What do you do?
I'm not going to be able to do anything to them, okay? One, I probably can't even find out who they are. And I certainly can't go reach over there and arrest them and put them in jail. So the only thing we can do is try and help people protect themselves from these scams, increase awareness, increase understanding, and educate communities, parents, students,
We're talking about that in the break. What sort of programs do you have where you try to make people aware of the problem and how to avoid getting nicked?
Well, since 2009, the Department of the Attorney General put together a manual called Keeping Safe in Cyberspace. And we go out and we do presentations to schools, community groups, students, parents, PowerPoint, things like that. And we also have a manual that helps give general advice so that people can be safe. And we do that. And then we've got a lot of different people doing a lot of different things using tech to help keep people safe, both from the consumer protection but also from the law enforcement end. So, for example, I've got an Internet Crimes Against Children unit that we have that deals with child porn. And our folks there are doing a terrific job. They go on, they try and get into these peer-to-peer networks of child pornographers.
They try to get on the inside.
Yes, and then identify these people. And we've done hundreds of undercover investigations. We've done prosecutions that have resulted in people pleading guilty and going to prison for these things. And we work not only with national law enforcement authorities, but international law enforcement authorities to bring down these pernicious, awful rings about that. So, but it's not just the prosecutions and the investigations. We do training. We do training for other law enforcement. We do training for community groups. We try and identify, what the tools are that these people are using to try and perpetrate their crimes. And you're always playing catch up, because in some ways it's like whack-a-mole. You bang one and they pop up somewhere else, and they're very creative, and so we just have to keep doing that. But it's very important to reach out to the community, and we do that. So we have our investigators doing that. We've got our units going out there, and then we've got a couple of other units helping to do information sharing amongst law enforcement. For example, we have what is called HIGIS, Hawaii, and I forgot exactly what the acronym means, but we share information on convictions, arrests, and things like that between law enforcement. So what you want is everybody watches CSI and NCIS, and it's like, oh, tell me about this guy, and it's like within 2 seconds, all this guy's history is up on some computer. Well, it doesn't exactly work that way, but what we're doing is we're trying to put the infrastructure together so that the police can share their database with the courts and share their database, and so that and now we're putting it together so that we can get it to the patrolman on the beat through their mobile app or their computer in their car, that they can get that information. It's still an ongoing work in progress that is very important. But we share data, and we do all of that.
How do you make the distinction between whether the prosecution or investigation should be a state or federal investigation? Because a lot of these things are crimes in both places. Who decides? Do you have a conversation, or do you just take the ball and run with it? How does that work?
Many times we do have conversations. We'll talk to the federal government, see what they're doing. See who wants to do it, because many times it is concurrent jurisdiction or overlapping jurisdiction, or we both can do that. But if the feds want to do it, we're happy to have them go forward. Many times this is an allocation of resource issue
Sure.
that we do.
But you share what's going on, so you can figure out what happens when the guy or somebody like him tries it again. In that context, by the way, suppose I get a suspicious thing on my computer, which happens to me. I mentioned, and it comes up in a legitimate context, but I'm very suspicious of it. It's asking for much too much information. It's taking me on a little ride. It wants to know everything about me, and I feel I need to tell you about this. I need to get somebody looking at this so people don't get ripped off. What do I do?
Right. Well, there's a couple of things you can do. First, you can always call my office, the Department of the Attorney General, and I think it's 586-1500.
Oh, I love when public officials do that.
But I can't. I think that's the number, 586-1500. And then we have. If you go on our website and you Google Hawaii Attorney General, there's a link where you can contact us. I don't have committed to memory the email address, but you can send us.
Use Google.
Something, and we'll take a look at that if there's a scam. The most important thing, unfortunately, is people need to protect themselves. They need to have proper firewalls in their computers so they don't get infected. They need to make sure their passwords are changed periodically. And let me just say this: don't use 1234 as your password. Don't use the word password as your password, and don't use 111 as your password. Okay,
it's asking for it.
Do a little bit more, and it's just you have to keep abreast of this. And then the other thing, which is really interesting for parents and people who are adults, is not only are the scammers targeting your children, so you need to help and monitor them and educate them, but they're targeting your parents who are grandparents and are older and are unsuspecting. And there are lots of scams that try and take money from elderly people. So you have to educate both your children and your parents, because your parents didn't grow up with this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're using it now, and they're so trusting because they're nice people.
Yeah, it amazes me how many people are, the young people too, they're so trusting of it. I mean, it is beautiful. The internet is beautiful. It's the finest, collaborative device that that the human race has ever had. But it's got these edges on it, and it's not easy to prosecute. Can you talk about that?
It's very difficult to prosecute internet crimes, but we've had it, because we can only prosecute people who are here in the state who are committing the crimes. And so, if people are committing the crimes outside of the state, we're not going to be able to prosecute them. But we work with the prosecutors, with the U.S. attorneys to do that.
One thing that flows out of that same point is, when it was born, which would be 1995 thereabouts, when Bill Gates made his big decision to move into the internet and change everything. It certainly has come a long way, changed all of our lives. All you got to do is wake up in the morning and think of your own acts and conduct, your own inquiries. You realize how it affects everybody. But there is a kind of there's a benefit in having it free, to let it go the way it goes and not to have government involved. And there are two schools of thought on that, obviously. I just wonder what you think about that, because in a sense, every time we have government get involved in the internet, we're taking the free beauty out of it. Maybe we just have to do that. It's too bad, but we have to do that.
Well, that's interesting, and that's a deep philosophical debate that we don't have time for here. But I would say this: reasonable regulation that protects people from scammers, fraudsters, and con artists is always going to be supported by me. Reasonable regulation that helps control the internet. It's sort of like this. You think cars are beautiful? That's great. Should we have rules of the road? Should we have traffic lights?
What a great comparison.
Or should we just let people drive wherever they want to drive?
That's beautiful, right?
Okay. And so I say reasonable regulation is important so that it can work.
Okay, well, finally, in our last 5 minutes or so, I'd like to know, how the government is doing, as far as you can see anyway, and from your vantage, state government, in moving to, update the computer system. The governor was, very excited about this, very enthusiastic. We have Sonny Bagwalia and a team that works with him to actually move us current, make us world class in terms of our state computer system. How is it going as far as the Attorney General is concerned?
As far as my office is concerned, it's going great. Okay, Sonny is a terrific fellow. Very knowledgeable, lots of experience, and has been able to come in and give an overview to this because I upgraded all the computers and the software in my office when I came into office. They hadn't been upgraded for about 5 years. So we had a bunch of computers that were operating on old operating systems. We had software that was outdated, that was not going to be supported. It's very important. Some of and every department had its own individual software. Sonny and the state and Governor Abercrombie have been trying to get a comprehensive whole out of this, integrate the same software, the same platforms, the same cloud-based services, so that we achieve economies of scale and things like that. They had Wang machines, okay?
At one time, it was a wonderful thing.
That's right, but the funny thing, and Sonny was telling me about this, and the good news is that even though the state was so vulnerable to being hacked, the hackers weren't targeting the state because they were going, Wang? No.
They didn't know anything about it.
We can't do that. Okay.
That's hysterical.
So we were so backwards that we were not a target. Now, as we ramp up in our proficiency, we will become a target, and it's really important that we protect all of this critical data and information and keep it safe. But I'm very pleased that the legislature underwrote that and will continue, I hope, to underwrite this effort to bring Hawaii state government into the 21st century, which is important because it's of critical importance to make sure that government works as it's supposed to and helps people. And if we don't have the tools, we're just not going to be able to do our jobs.
Yeah. It's like when you go into a given organization, whatever business organization, law firm, for example, and you say, we're going to put in new systems now. It's not just the computer system that changes, it's everything that changes,
Absolutely, and it's not really the computer system and the software are the smallest parts of it. It's the training. It's the willingness of the people to accept a different way of doing things. And getting the people to accept that is a large challenge. But it's important, and it's a critical piece that I think really will pay dividends in productivity, in efficiency, and in getting the right result.
David, it's great to talk to you. I only have one more question, and it's my Delta factor question. Change. You mentioned it a minute ago. So you've been in office 4 years?
Three.
And presumably, make a wild guess, I'd say more to come. You don't have to comment.
Who knows?
Who knows? But how have things changed for you? How have things changed for you as Attorney General? What's the dynamic that has gone on in that period for you?
Well, I think that I've learned a lot more, so I'm able to do my job a little bit more efficiently and a little bit more productively than when I first started. We have gotten an awful lot of cooperation from all of the cabinet officers and the other departments. It's a very cooperative cabinet, and we've worked closely, I think, with the legislature and under the leadership of Governor Abercrombie to move this thing forward. So in terms of that, I think all of the changes, at least in the Department of the Attorney General, have been for the better. And the real question is, and I come back to something I said earlier, we're here honestly to protect and serve. And how do we do that? How do we do that? And how do we do it better, more efficiently, and in the best interests of the people of the state of Hawaii?
Think it's a good career for a young lawyer?
Absolutely. The Department of the, being a government attorney, it's an interesting thing. And one of my friends said this, I'm going to steal the line from him. government attorneys are the guardians of the process. We are there not to make a political end result occur. We are there to make sure that the process is followed, because ultimately, in a democracy such as ours, the consent of the governed is the key thing, and it's really the acceptance of what's going forward. Any person, any tyrant, can make a pronouncement and enforce it if they have enough power and fear. But the question is can you get people to come along with the result and feel that it is fair and be productive and creative and move on with their lives? And so getting the consent of the governed is key, and having government attorneys make sure that the process is sacrosanct, is honest, is fair, so that people are heard. Now, we're not always going to do what any person says. Sometimes there's some crazy ideas out there that I don't agree with. Sometimes my ideas are not agreed with by other people. But we have this process of dialogue, exchange, and we make sure the process is fair, and we protect that process, and then we go forward. So I think having a career as a government attorney in government service is quite a noble thing to do.
Well, let me say that when before David Louie left his private practice and became the Attorney General of the state of Hawaii, he was a nice guy, and he still is. And it's relevant. It's important. It's a good thing. Thank you, David. David Louie, Attorney General of the state of Hawaii. This is Think Tech Talks. We're talking about community matters, really the essence of community, tech, and the Attorney General. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Jay.